And research has found that dopamine and noradrenaline, which are involved in alertness and focus, work differently in ADHD brains. That's why medications that boost these chemicals can be really helpful to some children.
Rizwana Dudia is an advanced practitioner and pharmacist
with over a decade of experience in mental health.
Her primary focus has been on supporting individuals with learning disabilities and autism.
That ability to think differently, act quickly, feel deeply can be really powerful.
Welcome to ADHD Experts, the podcast where certified clinicians, specialists, and lived experience voices unpack what ADHD really looks like. Hi, Rizwana. Everyone's been talking about ADHD lately, but what does it actually stand for?
ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? And honestly, it's not the best name because it's not really a deficit of attention. It's more likely a difficulty regulating attention. Children with ADHD can focus really deeply on things they enjoy, and that's called hyperfocus, but they struggle with things that aren't interesting or rewarding. So it's more about inconsistency rather than lack of attention.
Is ADHD a part of being neurodivergent?
Yes, it is. So ADHD is considered a form of neurodivergence because it involves a different way of thinking and processing information. Neurodivergent people often experience the world differently, not worse, just different, and that's really important to remember. So they may need support to navigate their systems that aren't built for their brains in mind. So instructions in a manual or um, complicated maps, etc. Those things are kind of built for people who don't have ADHD. So it's important to recognize that we need to offer better resources and better support for those people who do have ADHD so that they can just get through life the same way as anyone else, but things just need to be adapted to cater to their needs.
And what about neurodiversity? What exactly does that term mean?
Neurodiversity is the idea that brain differences are a natural part of being a human. So, just like we all have different personalities, we also have different ways of thinking, learning, and processing the world. People with ADHD, autism, dyslexia are all examples of neurodivergence. So, the neurodiversity movement is about recognizing these differences as being valuable, not broken, and making space for everyone's strengths.
Would you consider ADHD a disability?
So ADHD is recognised as a disability under the Equality Act in the UK. So by law, if someone does have ADHD, reasonable adjustments should be made to cater for them, as it can have a significant impact on their daily life. But that doesn't mean every person with ADHD identifies as being disabled. It's really personal, to be honest. And what matters is that they're just entitled to have reasonable adjustments in school or work and other settings to help level the playing field a little bit, if that makes sense.
From a scientific perspective, what causes ADHD and how does it affect the brain?
Science shows that ADHD is a brain-based condition. So MRI scans show differences in brain structures and activity, especially in areas like the prefrontal cortex. There's also genetic, so multiple genes are involved. So ADHD is linked to a difference in how certain brain regions develop and communicate, especially areas involved in attention, impulse control, and executive functioning. It's also connected to lower levels of dopamine, the brain chemical that affects motivation and reward. It's not caused by screens, sugar, or bad parenting. It's biological and is always present from a young age. And research has found that dopamine and noradrenaline, which are involved in alertness and focus, work differently in ADHD brains. That's why medications that boost these chemicals can be really helpful to some children. So, dopamine is the hormone that is responsible for our reward satisfaction type feeling. So, where the levels of dopamine are a bit less in someone who has ADHD, when they complete something or they have a long list of things to do and they've completed them at the end of it, they don't get as much dopamine released as the general population. So they don't get that sense of motivation, focus, reward, satisfaction. So it's really hard to then want to do those things again. So it's really important to understand that it's caused by lower levels of hormones within the brain, which mean kids often seek that stimulation, like movement, noise, excitement to boost that feeling. And that's why boring tasks feel quite painful, but fun tasks lead to hyperfocusing. Their brains are trying to self-regulate. So understanding that can really help parents to support them and kind of avoid tasks that can make them feel a little bit worse.
Before we wrap up, ADHD shows up differently for everyone, and if you've been thinking about getting an ADHD assessment, now might be the right time. You can book yours using the link in the description below, and don't forget to use the code for £50 off. Until next time, take care of yourself, be kind to your brain, and thanks for listening.